Hey, it is 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we're live talking about the technical side of the real estate industry. And today, not only are we talking about something extremely important for your real estate exams, and this is whether you're getting a sales associate license or a broker license. This is a really important topic, and I'll tell you why. But it's also something that comes up in pretty much every transaction you deal with, to a certain extent. We're going to go through the different options that you have with holding escrow money, earnest money deposits. This is something that the Florida Real Estate Commission, this bar none, is the number one reason why they have to discipline real estate licensees. And so that's a big reason why this is so important for your real estate exams, but also important if you want to be able to keep your real estate license and not potentially have it permanently revoked. So I'm super excited to bring this episode to you today because I know this is really important for your exam, but something you should know about in the real world, what these requirements are. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate, and you're watching Ask the Instructor.
You are watching Ask the Instructor. Absorb the knowledge. Become the expert.
Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Christman. This show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time, we're live helping you understand the technical side of the real estate industry. If you've got questions on anything it is we're talking about today, drop that in the comments and we'll help you understand that. But let's get right down to it. Escrow money. So first, we've got a bunch of different terms for this. Escrow would really kind of be the most proper name as far as real estate law in Florida goes, but we might also call this earnest money. It might be called good faith money. It might be called any one of these really in combination with the deposit. That's really your key word that tells you whichever one of these other ones. It's usually calling it an escrow deposit or a good faith deposit or an earnest money deposit. It almost always has that term deposit attached to it. Another one, binder or binder, depending on how you want to pronounce that one there. Binder, I believe, is the appropriate definition or the pronunciation for that, but doesn't really matter for your exam and whatnot. But really, it's just a deposit. And so let's first talk about what the purpose of this deposit is. So we've got a real estate transaction with a buyer and a seller. And the buyer agrees to, and the seller agree to a contract. They agree to a certain sales price, a certain closing date, whatever the terms are of the contract. The buyer and seller have agreed to this contract. Now, with a legally enforceable contract, there's a lot of remedies for breaching or breaking the contract. If the buyer should decide to break this contract, the seller could potentially sue them to perform the contract as they agreed to. That's what we call specific performance, and that's among other remedies for breach of contract. So there's already that existing, but if you want to sue somebody for specific performance of a contract, you've got to hire an attorney, you've got to go to court, you've got to pay court costs, pay attorney fees. Now, you might get that money reimbursed if the court finds for your specific performance, but it's a lot of legwork to go through. So what a seller is usually going to look for, and this is not required, escrow is not required in Florida for a real estate transaction to be valid, for a contract to be valid, for anything regarding real estate. Deposits are optional as far as the law is concerned. But for sellers, they're usually not optional because the seller wants to see some skin in the game, something to show good faith, to show that you're going to act on good faith, that you're going to do what that contract says. So the buyer will typically offer some sort of deposit, some amount of a deposit, maybe $1,000, maybe $10,000, maybe $100,000. It depends. This is just another term that's agreed to as part of the contract of what deposit is going to be put up in advance. Now, if the buyer goes through with this transaction, they get the money back. They get the money credited back to them. So they're really just putting a deposit toward what it is that they're promising to do in this contract. So they said they're going to buy the house from the seller. They're making this deposit. They're putting up the money in advance, but they go through with the transaction, they get the money back. But let's say that they don't go through the transaction. Let's say the buyer just gets cold feet. And there's a lot of loopholes and outs you could put into a contract, whether this is something along the lines of an inspection contingency or financing contingencies or appraisal contingencies, and all these little loopholes that could exist in the contract where the buyer would be entitled to get their deposit money back. But this money ultimately would be entitled to the seller if the buyer just says, oh, you know what, I don't care that the contract doesn't give me any way out, I just am going to refuse to purchase this property. So one of the remedies for that breach of contract, because the buyer would have breached or broke the contract for not buying the property as they agreed to and not having any contingency that allows them to get out of that contract. So the seller would be entitled to keep that earnest money deposit as liquidated damages. So ultimately what we've got here is this deposit money, if everything goes according to plan, should go back to the buyer. At closing, they close on the property, they get that money back, everyone's happy. But if they breach the contract, that money would be entitled to go to the seller as liquidated damages. Now, how do we know whether the buyer's really going to buy or if they're going to back out, if they're going to walk away and potentially forfeit the earnest money deposit to the seller? Maybe even worse things that could happen as remedies for breach. Well, point is, we don't know whose money this is going to be, whether this money goes to the buyer or this money goes to the seller. We're not sure. So this deposit money needs to be held by a trusted third party. And that's really what an escrow account is. It's a trust account. It's money that's held in trust by this third party. So this third party holds this deposit money until it can be released back to the buyer at closing or released to the seller. And there's strings and contingencies attached to when this money can actually be dispersed, when this money can be paid out of this escrow account. Even if the seller is entitled to this money, they don't automatically get the money. The buyer would have to forfeit the money, or we'd have to have a settlement procedure go through to figure out who's entitled to this money. So this third party, let's talk about who this third party can be. There's really three options. So number one, and probably what's most important for your real estate exam, is broker-held escrow accounts. This is where the most rules need to be known because a lot of FREC rules apply with broker-held escrow accounts. All the FREC rules apply. There's just a lot of those that don't apply to these other two options when this is a broker-held escrow account. Now, the most common option that's used in the real world is a title company. Or a third option is an attorney. So there's three options of who could hold this trust account: a broker, a title company, or an attorney. Now, most of the stuff you need to know for your exam focuses just on the broker-held escrow account because the title companies and attorneys are not real estate licensees. Therefore, the Florida Real Estate Commission does not have any jurisdiction over this title company or this attorney. So let's just quickly talk on these two options, specifically this one, the title company. If you're starting a brokerage, if you're thinking about starting a brokerage and you're wondering whether or not you should have your own escrow account, my recommendation is do not have your own escrow account. There's so much red tape and accounting, and maybe you like that. Maybe you're really good at that, and then maybe you want to have an escrow account. But by having your own escrow account, you're assuming the responsibility for that escrow account as a broker. So a broker holding an escrow account, you're assuming responsibility for every last penny that's in this escrow account. Now, if a title company is holding the escrow account, they're responsible for it. It's no longer the broker's responsibility for that money. It's whoever is holding this money. So if you're thinking about starting a brokerage and maybe you have a brokerage, you're wondering whether or not you should have your own escrow account, Florida law does not require you to have an escrow account. It's optional for you as a broker. Remember, escrow in general for a transaction, for a contract, is not required under Florida law. And brokers are not required to hold their own escrow account in Florida. Now, that might be different in some other states, but in Florida, you're not required to have an escrow account as a broker. You can, but you're assuming a lot of risk and responsibility by holding your own escrow account. And when you have the option to shift that risk and responsibility to a title company or an attorney, now, at least in the Tampa Bay area, we typically use title companies to hold escrow accounts. Why? Well, number one, we don't have to be responsible for that escrow money as a broker. We don't have to be responsible for accounting for and properly dispersing this escrow money, because you'll have to answer to the Florida Real Estate Commission as a broker if you mess this up. And you don't want to do that because they're not nice about this. And that's why this is taught so much in not only pre-licensing for sales associates, but also pre-licensing for brokers. It's going to show up on any real estate exam you take regarding escrow money in some way, shape, or form. More so on the broker side where it's a lot more in depth, but even for sales associates, even though as a sales associate you wouldn't personally have the account yourself, they're teaching you early about this because there's so many problems that arise from misappropriation of escrow money. So why would a title company want to take on this risk? Why would the title company step in and assume this risk? And at no cost to anyone typically. Well, it's not that they're charging for holding this escrow money, and they might actually charge a small fee depending on who the title company is. But the reason why they're doing this is they want to gain your business. They want to be the ones closing the transaction. And that's the same reason why an attorney might have their own escrow account for real estate transactions. They're holding this money because they want to be the ones that are responsible for the closing, that get paid for closing the transaction. So yes, as a broker, you can hold your own real estate escrow account, but there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of responsibility related to holding your own escrow account. Look, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the requirements on a broker of if you're holding your own escrow account or if you're using a title company or an attorney. Because even when there's a title company or an attorney holding this escrow money, there's still going to be requirements on our part as a real estate licensee. So this will help keep you from losing your real estate license. I was watching one of the FREC meetings this morning. They broadcast their FREC meetings, and I watched a license get revoked this morning because of somebody mishandling escrow money. So they take this extremely serious. This is extremely important, not just for your exam, but for the sake of your real estate license. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be back in less than 2 minutes. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate, and you're watching Ask the Instructor. If you've been thinking about real estate, look, in this current market, it's hard not to. There's so many opportunities that exist out there for residential real estate, commercial real estate, business brokerage, property management. I mean, it's ridiculous how much opportunity lies from having a real estate license. So look, if you've been thinking about getting a real estate license, I mean, it's minimal cost compared to starting other careers and starting other businesses to get into this. So I urge you to check it out and give it a try. I mean, even if you're just using your license for personal use, you've got huge, immense benefits there. Go to this link. It's licensefl.com. That's licensefl.com. Put that link in the description. It's got your step-by-step guide to get a Florida real estate license. And look, check it out. Give us a call. We're here to answer any questions it is that you have, and go out there and make some money.
Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Did you know that statewide, only about 50% of test takers pass their state exam on the first try? At the Tampa State, we've broken down passing the class and state exams into 4 simple styles of the full strategy at passfirsttry.com. That's passfirsttry.com.
Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor, where we're talking about escrow money in real estate transactions in Florida. So again, this is important for your real estate exams. Also important to make sure you don't lose your license if you mishandle this or do something you're not supposed to, because the Florida Real Estate Commission takes this extremely serious, because this is probably where there's the biggest potential for a real estate licensee to injure the public financially. So escrow money, we're going to mainly be focusing on the broker-held escrow accounts, but for the title company attorneys, and that's my recommendation, to let the title company, let the attorney, let them assume that risk and responsibility for this escrow money, because it is a lot of risk that you're taking on yourself. So a couple things that are required when you're dealing with a title company or an attorney. So that's the preferred way to do this. And this is how most real estate transactions are typically closed, is with a title company or an attorney, and they're the ones holding the escrow money because they want to be the ones doing the closing. So when you do use a title company, this has to be, or an attorney for that matter, you have to put their name, address, and phone number in the contract. And if you look at your real estate contracts, you'll see this. It's usually right there on page 1 of where this escrow money is being held. Name, address, and phone number of the title company or the attorney. So that's something us, as the licensee, would be responsible for doing, indicating on the contract, the sale contract, who the title company or attorney is, what's their address, and what's their phone number. At a minimum, that information needs to be in the contract. So info in the contract, number 1. Number 2, the brokerage is responsible for verifying the funds of this title company or attorney held account within 10 days. So within 10 days of the money going into the account, they need to verify that that money went into the account, that the check cleared, everything's good. And then once they receive that verification, they have to pass along that verification in writing within 10 days to the cooperating broker in the transaction. So if they were the buyer's broker, they need to pass that along to the seller's broker, and vice versa. So 10 days to request written verification of this deposit money, and then 10 days to pass that information along. And the only other thing you really need to know about title companies and attorneys, at least for your real estate exams, is the Florida Real Estate Commission, and I've said this already, does not have any authority over title companies or attorneys. The FREC has zero authority over title companies and attorneys, because title companies and attorneys, they're not real estate licensees. So therefore, the FREC, who only has authority over real estate licensees, has zero authority over title companies and attorneys. But who up here is a real estate licensee? Well, a broker is. So the FREC does have jurisdiction and authority over broker-held escrow accounts. And if a broker is choosing to hold this deposit money, this escrow money, they are responsible and take on the risk for every last penny in there to make sure that it's properly accounted for, that it's in the appropriate type of account, that it's dispersed according to the Florida Real Estate Commission rules, and all notification procedures are done in the required timely manner by the Florida Real Estate Commission. So again, there's a lot of responsibility and a lot of risk that's taken upon by a broker holding their own escrow account. So hopefully I've scared you off enough from holding your own real estate escrow account as a real estate broker. Just shift that liability over to a title company attorney. But let's say you do want to open your own escrow account, or you just want to be able to answer these questions on the exam. Let's talk about what you've got to do. So you have this account. It needs to be a separate account. So a separate account, just a separate escrow account. And by default, if you want to be able to just put money into that account, it needs to be a non-interest bearing account. But you are actually able to use an interest bearing account. You are legally able to have an interest bearing account. But if you choose to have an interest-bearing account or to use an interest-bearing account, before you're able to deposit the money into that interest-bearing account, you need to have written permission from both the buyer and the seller. And we need both buyer and seller because whose money is it? Well, we don't know yet. We can't tell the future. We can't predict with 100% certainty whether this money will go to the buyer or the seller who will be entitled to this money. So we need to get permission of both parties if we're going to use an interest-bearing account, and who's going to receive that interest. Is the interest going to go to the buyer, the seller, the broker, maybe some sort of charitable organization, whoever that money is going to go to? That has to be specified in that written permission. So it can be an interest or non-interest bearing escrow account, but it does have to be a separate escrow account. Now, a couple other rules. Even though this does have to be a separate escrow account, now if you go to the bank and you go to open a bank account, they're going to usually ask for some sort of starting deposit, some sort of minimum deposit, some sort of minimum amount of money. So you might think that means you have to wait until you get an escrow check to be able to open up this account, when you could actually use your own money as a broker in this account, but with certain strings attached. So there's two thresholds that you're not allowed to exceed of your own money as a broker being in this escrow account. Now, for the escrow account, you only need to have one escrow account, and you could put all of your escrow, all of your deposits into that one separate escrow account. As long as it's just escrow money in there, all the escrow money can be together in that one account. And it's our job as a broker to reconcile this every single month and to sign off on this reconciliation, keep all these records for 5 years in case the DBPR does audit this account. But for the broker's own money, there is a small portion of the broker's own money that is allowed to be in this escrow account for that reason of maybe having a minimum balance or a minimum starting deposit, or whatever the case may be. And those two numbers are either 1,000 or 5,000. And 1,000 is for sales, 5,000 is for property management, or property management and sales combined into one single account would be $5,000 of the broker's own money that's allowed to be in this account. So the broker's allowed to have up to that threshold of their own money in this escrow account. If they're earning interest, that's factored into that threshold. And if they are earning interest, they're to remove that interest every single month when they reconcile this account. But these are definitely important exam terms, because anything beyond this $1,000 or $5,000 that's allowed to be in there of the broker's own money, depending on whether this is a sales or property management and sales account altogether. So depending on what type of account is being used, the broker's allowed to have these certain dollar amounts in there. Anything beyond that is what we would call co-mingling. Co-mingling refers to the mixing of these monies. So you're mixing deposit money, trust money, with non-trust money. So say the broker's got $1,001 of their own money in a sales escrow account. That extra dollar is being illegally co-mingled in this deposit account, in this trust account. So this is why it needs to be reconciled every single month. And there's one other thing I want to talk about today with the escrow money, because there are a few other things in there, and if you've already taken the course of this, you probably already remember a bunch of the stuff that we talked about. Hopefully this has helped bring back some of the most important points out of this here. But one of the things that is also important to remember, so we talked about earlier of where this money goes. Transaction closes, it goes back to the buyer at closing. The buyer breaches the contract, it's the seller that would be entitled to that money. But if we don't have the buyer forfeiting that money to the seller, we have what's called conflicting demands. And conflicting demands is where both the buyer and the seller are making a claim on this deposit money. Now say there's $10,000, the deposit was $10,000 that's in here. They both can't have that same $10,000. We've got to either give it to one or the other, or figure out some way to split it, or some way that everyone can agree to. Because this is what it's predicated upon, is agreement between the buyer and the seller. We're just the third party that's the referee trying to get the agreement between the two of them. Now, if we can't get agreement, that stipulates what's called conflicting demands. And when we have conflicting demands, this is the notification requirement that I spoke about earlier, You have 15 days, 15 business days to notify the Florida Real Estate Commission that you've got conflicting demands. And this even applies if you as a broker have what's called a good faith doubt. So if you doubt that the parties are going to act on good faith, that actually counts the same as conflicting demands, and you have to notify the Florida Real Estate Commission within 15 days. Now, another thing that is also required. So from the date we have the conflicting demands, we have to notify the Florida Real Estate Commission within the first 15 days, 15 business days. But also within now 30 days of conflicting demands, so within 30 days, these two run concurrently with each other, we have to implement a settlement procedure. And there's 4 settlement procedures that are available. You might remember the acronym MALE, M-A-L-E, Mediation, Arbitration, Litigation, and Escrow Disbursement Order. So that's the acronym MALE. Now, these don't have to be followed in any particular order. It's at the broker's discretion to determine which one would be the most effective and institute that method. So we have mediation. Mediation is the most informal. It's not going to guarantee an outcome because this is non-binding. This is basically just trying to negotiate a settlement, to mediate a settlement between the buyer and the seller. That's what mediation is, really, just kind of facilitating a negotiation. Now, maybe we want to go into arbitration. Arbitration, if we institute that, is where we're going to have a third party is going to listen to what the buyer says, is going to listen to what the seller says, and ultimately make a decision that is binding. Now, in order to use arbitration, both parties have to agree to the arbitration. So maybe they don't agree, or maybe we want something a little bit more formal. We can go through litigation. Litigation is where this actually goes to court, where we could turn over the money to the court or even request a portion of that money if we believe we're entitled to that money. But that money gets turned over to the court and that gets resolved in an actual court of law. Or the fourth method is where we write to the Florida Real Estate Commission and we request an escrow disbursement order, or an EDO. So we're requesting an escrow disbursement order from the Florida Real Estate Commission for them to order us how to disperse this escrow money. So we're asking the FREC to tell us what to do with this money. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg of all of the rules and requirements regarding escrow money. These are some of the most important things that are likely to show up on your exam if it asked about escrow money, but there's even more on top of that. If you've already taken the course for this, you might remember some of the additional things that we talked about with escrow money. If you're studying for your real estate exams, we've got a great strategy to help you pass your exam. Go to passfirsttry.com. And not only is this related to escrow money, but everything that's covered in the course. We've got study tools and a whole recommended strategy for you to transition through to be able to be prepared to pass your exams on the first try. So check out passfirsttry.com for more information on that. If you've got questions on anything, if you're trying to get your license and you're struggling with studying, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. The phone number is 813-333-2676. You can also text us at that number as well, 333-2676, area code 813. You can check us out online at tampaschool.com. If you've got any questions or anything like that, send that in to us. We'd love to answer them for you. It's about all the time we've got for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you for our Business Mastermind State of Real Estate on Friday. Hey, so if you're thinking about starting a real estate career, it could feel a little overwhelming sometimes. Look, that's completely understandable. That's why we're here to help. If you haven't already, check out our Success Center, tampaschool.com/success. Or if you don't even know where to begin, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way it is that we can. Our phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. Give us a call. We're the Tampa School of Real Estate.
Do you want a career that allows you to be in control? With a career in real estate, you'll get to call the shots. Whether you're looking at starting part-time or want to become the next top agent, a career in real estate makes it possible. Find out what it takes at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Are you thinking about a career in real estate? Hey, I'm John Chrisma with the Tampa School of Real Estate, and we've helped thousands of people just like you obtain their real estate license. If you're thinking about a career in real estate, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Our advisors are standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way they can. Hey, if you're enjoying the show today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.